What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in this video I'm gonna show you how to play the Tokyo Xtreme Racer games on PC. That is Xtreme Racer 0, 1, 2, and 3 and Racer Drift 1 and 2. We're gonna use Flycast and PCSX2, a Dreamcast and PS2 emulator, and I'll show you the best settings for all games so we can get ready for the upcoming remake, which I'm very excited about. If you're planning on buying on Amazon, please use my affiliate link below in the description. Any product on the website will count and you will be directly supporting the channel. Okay, so for the Dreamcast games, that is Xtreme Racer 1 and 2, we're gonna use the Flycast emulator. The link for this page will be on the description of this video. And in this page, you're gonna click here where it says releases, and it will take you to this page. At the moment that I'm recording this video, we are at version 2.4. Now on this page, you're gonna scroll down a little bit and arrive at the Assets section. This tutorial is for Windows PC, but this emulator is also available for Mac and I believe for Android as well. But this one is for Windows, in which you're gonna click here on the file that says Flycast Win64. Click on this one to download and put this on the desktop of your computer. We're also gonna need 7-zip to extract the files. The link will also be on the description of this video, but if you are on Windows 11, you can use the extracting tool from there. It works as well, but on this page, you're just gonna click here on this download button, and you're also gonna put this on the desktop of your PC. Now on the desktop, we have the files with us, and we're gonna start by installing the 7-zip. So go ahead and just double click on this file. It will open this window, and this one is very straightforward. You just have to click on this install button, and in a few moments 7-zip will be installed. So now click on close, and the icon of both files should look like this for you now, and we can start extracting the emulator. So on the Flycast file, you're gonna click on this one with the right button, and it will bring up this window. And in here, you're gonna put your mouse on top of 7-zip, and you're gonna select the option that says extract files. Now on this window where it says extract to, you're gonna click on the side of this name, and here you're gonna type the name of the emulator with the cap F, by the way, so that it looks exactly like this. And we're doing this because this emulator has a bug in which it will not find the emulator folder so you can add your games. And when I tried out with the emulator name, it worked just fine. So just make sure you type it exactly like this. Now click on OK, and now you should have the emulator folder with you. At this point, you can go ahead and delete the original 7-zip and emulator files. We're not gonna need this anymore, and we're gonna start by opening the Flycast folder. So double click on this one, and it will take you here. So now double click on the Flycast folder once again, and inside you're gonna see the Flycast application. So go ahead and click on this one, and it might take a while for the emulator to start, but don't worry, that's normal, it happens sometimes. Now on the Flycast window, we have the option to add our game folder. And what I'm gonna do here is that I'm just gonna drop the game file of Xtreme Racer 1 and 2 on the emulator folder. I have the games on the CHD format, and because of YouTube's guideline, because YouTube is very strict with this sort of thing, I cannot show you here on the video where to go to get the games because I would get my video deleted and the channel striked. So the best I can say here without getting in trouble is that Google is your friend. And once you have the games in here, go back to Flycast and you're gonna click on this Add Game Folder button. It should open this window here for you now. So because our files are on the desktop, I'm gonna scroll down here a little bit and locate the desktop option. There you go. So now click on this, and once again scroll down a little bit and locate your Flycast folder. So now just click on this one, and at this point you don't have to click on this one, you just have to select current folder option. So go ahead and do that, and by doing so the emulator should locate both games right here, and it should download the game cover automatically as well. That is a feature of this emulator. So now with the games in here, let's change the emulator settings. So click on this settings option to bring up this window. On the general settings, you don't have to change anything here. They're good to go. So move over to the controls tab. And you can use your keyboard or controller as well. This emulator supports pretty much all the controllers out there with direct input and X input as well. So if you don't have your controller plugged in, go ahead and do that right now. I'm using a Xbox 360 controller, so it's already showing up in here. By default, it's selecting everything on the port A of the emulator, which means that you can play with the keyboard and controller at the same time. But if you don't want to do that, if you just want to play with your controller, for example, where it says keyboard, you're going to click on port A and select none. And also do the same thing for your mouse as well, so that it doesn't take over control of the game too. And Flycast also has a automatic mapping function, which means that your controller is good to go as it is. But if you want to change your buttons, you just have to click here on map and you can change any individual input you want here. Just click on the map option and then press that button on your controller. And there you go. And you just have to do the exact same thing for your keyboard if you're going to choose that. Just make sure that your device is also being selected here. In this case, for the port A of the Dreamcast is my controller, so the way that it is now is good to go. It's very straightforward and easy to use. Now let's head over to the video tab. On the first option, graphics API, for both games, the best option here is DirectX 11, because this one gets rid of any graphical glitches that this game could have, but it's also the most demanding one. So if you don't have a really good PC and the performance is not okay, you can try with DirectX 9 to see how it performs. OpenGL is the option that requires the less of your PC. The same thing also happens for transparent sorting. The best option is per pixel, but it's also the most demanding one of your PC. So if you're lagging, come back here and try with the per strip or triangle option. Now scrolling down a little bit, we have the rendering options, and internal resolution, this is the one that's going to make the most difference on your game. The higher the resolution here, the better the game will look, but it's also going to require more of your GPU. When I played both games, I have the X3 option set here, and I could play both games just fine. I'm putting the specs of my PC on the screen right now, so you can use that as a reference. But what you can do here is start playing the game with the native resolution, and if the performance is okay, you're gonna press the tab button of your keyboard to bring up the options, and you can come back here and increase the resolution further and resume the game, and you can see if the performance is okay from there without having to shut down the emulator. Now still here on rendering, by default VSync is turned on, and this option can introduce a bit of input lag, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. But if you're seeing a lot of screen tearing, come back here and turn this option back on. Now scroll down a bit more, and on aspect ratio, to make the game run at 16:9, you just have to turn on the widescreen game cheats option. This emulator has those widescreen patches that other emulators have, and it works just fine here for both games. If you have a ultra wide screen, then you're gonna turn on the widescreen option and also the super widescreen as well. I'm not sure how well these options work on this emulator because I don't have a monitor like that myself. Now, if you scroll down a bit more, we have the performance settings right here. And the ones that make the most difference on this game is the shadows and fog option. So if you're having trouble with the performance, turn off both the shadows and fog right here. For the advanced settings, don't change anything, leave them as it is. And for texture upscaling, these options will not work for both games. You don't have to change anything on audio unless you know what you're doing. The same goes for the advanced tab as well. The default settings should work just fine. When you're finished, click on done, and we're ready to start the game. So you're just gonna click on the one you want to start, and the emulator should start as such. If you want to go full screen, press F11 on your keyboard. And like I said, if you want to access those options with the game running, press the tab button on your keyboard and then click on the settings option, and you're gonna have access to those again. And that's it for the Dreamcast games. Now let's move over to the PS2 games. So the emulator website is this one. The link will be on the description of this video. And on this page, you're gonna click here where it says latest nightly, and then click on Windows download to get the emulator. Download this to the desktop of your PC. PCSX2 requires Visual C++ in order for it to work, and you can get it on this page. The link will also be on the description of this video. And in here, you're just gonna click on the Visual C++ right here to download that. Also drop this file on the desktop of your PC. And lastly, we're gonna use 7-zip to extract the file. If you are on Windows 11, you can just use the extracting tool from there. But on the 7-zip page, click here on this download button and also drop this one on the desktop. Okay, now on the desktop, you should have all the files with you. We're gonna start with VC++. So double click on this VC Redis file and this window will open for you. And there is a chance that you already have Visual C++ on your PC if you played games on the PC before, actual PC games that is. If that's the case, you're gonna get a screen like this one where it says modify installation. And if you're seeing this, you can go ahead and close this window. But if not, you're gonna proceed with the installation until it is done. Just keep clicking on the next button until it is finished. Now to extract the emulator, we're gonna use 7-zip. So this is the file as well. Go ahead and double click on this one. And the installation is very straightforward. All you gotta do is just click on this install button, wait a few moments, and there you go. It is now installed. So click on close, and the icon of the emulator should now look like this one for you. And at this point, you can go ahead and delete VC++ and 7-zip. We're not gonna need this anymore. And we're gonna start with the emulator. So what you're gonna do here is click on this file with the right button of your mouse. This window will show up. Now put your mouse on top of 7-zip and then click on extract to PCSX2. Use this option here because then all the files will be inside a folder. And there you go. This is the folder right here. You can go ahead and delete the original zip file. We're not gonna need this anymore. And you can also rename this folder, by the way. That's gonna be up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and proceed with this one. So now double click on this folder to open. And it should look like this for you now. Before doing anything, we're gonna create the portable file for the emulator. And for that, you're gonna click anywhere on this folder with the right button of your mouse to bring up this window again. So now put your mouse on top of new, and then you're gonna select text document. And there you go. This is the file right here. So now you're gonna rename this file and you're gonna type here portable, exactly like this. We're doing this because when we start the emulator, it will generate all the folders on the same place. So it's gonna keep everything organized. And that's what we're going to do now. Double click on the PCSX2 Qt application. And when you do so, you're gonna see all these folders being created here. That means you did this right. So now on the setup wizard, you can change the language of the emulator and also the theme as well. This one is gonna be up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and click on next. Now we have to select the BIOS folder for this emulator. And this BIOS file is required in order for the emulator to work. And because of YouTube's guideline, because YouTube is very strict about this sort of thing, I cannot show you here on the video where to go to get the BIOS because they are copyright protected. And if you do that on YouTube, they will delete your video and also strike your channel. So the best I can say here without getting in trouble is that Google is your friend. And since we did the portable installation, the location where you're going to drop the BIOS file is on the BIOS folder right here on the emulator folder. So double click on this one, and this is where you're gonna drop the BIOS. The BIOS file that I have here with me is this one, is on the bin format, and there are a bunch of BIOS files out there and they all work just fine on this emulator. It doesn't have to be a specific one or the one that I'm using here. It can be many other as well, and they usually are on the bin format. So now with the BIOS in place, you're gonna go back to the emulator and you're gonna click on the refresh list option. And if your BIOS is valid, you should see popping up right here. So click on this one to highlight it, and then you can go ahead and click on next. Now we have to select the location where you want the emulator to scan for your games. This can be anywhere on your PC, and it lists here the formats that this emulator can read. What I like to do here is on the emulator folder, I just click on this with the right button anywhere, select new and then folder, and I'm just gonna call this one games. And this is where I'm gonna drop the games, of course. So now go back to the emulator, click on the add button. It should open the emulator folder by default. And now you just select the games folder once and then click on select folder. And it is asking you if you want to scan this folder recursively. This means that if you have a subfolder in there with games inside, the emulator will find them as well. We're not gonna need this for this video, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on yes. And there you go, the location is right here. And you can also add multiple locations as well. It doesn't have to be a single one. Now moving on, click on next, and now we have to set up the controller. And PCSX2 can work with the keyboard and controllers as well. And that is most controllers out there from PlayStation and Xbox, they all work just fine on this emulator. And even third-party controllers as well if they have one of the supported APIs. So what you're gonna do here now is, if you don't have your controller plugged in, go ahead and do that right now. Make sure that DualShock 2 is highlighted here, and then you're gonna click on automatic mapping. And if your controller is supported, you're gonna see it showing up right here. I'm using a Xbox controller, so it's showing up as SDL0X input. But your controller can also show up as direct input too. It will work just fine, don't worry. And all you have to do here is select this option, and the emulator will do the automatic configuration for you. The controller is ready. And just like that, if you want to use a keyboard as well, you just have to do the same thing. Automatic mapping, and then select keyboard or mouse too. If you're going to use a second controller, you just have to do the exact same thing, but for controller port 2. There's also a more detailed controller configuration. I'm gonna show you that when we are done here. And when you are done, go ahead and click on next, and just like that, the setup is complete. Now click on finish, and in a few moments, the emulator will show up. For a more detailed controller configuration I talked about, to get there, you're gonna click here where it says settings, and then select the controllers option. This window will show up, and in here, you're gonna click on controller port 1, and on the screen, you can do the automatic mapping configuration again, or change individual inputs as well. Now let's add the games on this emulator. And if you remember, I created the games folder for that, right? On the emulator folder. So this is where I'm gonna drop the games files. And as you probably figured out by now, just like the BIOS, the games are copyright protected. So I cannot show you here on the video where to go to get them. Remember, Google is your friend. Now go back to the emulator, and you're gonna click on this scan for new games button. And just like that, your game should appear right here. Now let's tweak the emulator settings to give us the best performance and graphics in all games. And there are two ways you can go on about this. You can change the settings from here, and it will apply to all the games, or you can give individual settings, which is what I'm gonna recommend you to do, because that way we can access the patches option of the emulator. And the settings are pretty much the same for all 4 games, but there are 2 games in which you have an extra patch. That is Racer 0 and Racer 3. You're gonna understand what I'm talking about when we get there. So I'm gonna use Racer 3 as an example. So to change the settings, you're gonna click on the game with the right button and select the first option, Properties. By doing so, this window will show up. And our first stop is right here on the Emulation tab. One setting I want to show you here is Optimal Frame Pacing. This one can help with the input lag that this emulator has. And to turn this on, you just have to click on this little box right next to it, and there you go. However, this option is going to require more of your PC. So if the performance of the game is not okay, you're gonna come back here and turn this option off. Also, if you're noticing a lot of screen tearing on your game, come back here and turn on the vertical sync option. But try playing the game without this one, because it can introduce input lag as well. Now head over to the patches option, and these are the patches that I was talking about just before. All 4 games have the widescreen and the no interlacing patches, and you can go ahead and enable these ones. But like I said, Racer 3 and Drift 2 have an extra patch. The one for Racer 3 is this one, and you should definitely go ahead and turn this one on. And I think Racer Drift 2 has a patch related to the controls of the game, something like that. But you have a description here of what that can do. Now moving on, click on the Graphics tab, and on the option on the top, Render, click on where it says Use Global Settings. And here you have different renders for this emulator. There is no best option here because it depends on the PC specs that you have. So unless you are familiar with these settings, you're gonna go ahead and set this to automatic, because then the emulator will find the best render for your PC. And right below that on adapter, this one is your GPU. That is your main GPU in case your PC has 2, like the integrated graphics of your CPU, for example. But go ahead here and pick main GPU for the emulator. Below that on display, this option, aspect ratio, if you are using one of the widescreen patches of the game, click here and change this to widescreen as well. Otherwise, the widescreen patch will not work. Now on the options on the bottom, go ahead and enable only the anti-blur option. We're done with display. Now click on the rendering tab. And the first option, internal resolution, this is the one that's gonna make the most difference on this emulator. By clicking here, you can increase the resolution of the emulator. And the higher the resolution, the better the game will look. But it's going to require more of your GPU. With the PC specs that I have, I could play all 4 games just fine on 4K resolution. I'm putting them on the screen right now. But what you can do here, in case you don't know what resolution to pick, you can start playing the game with the native resolution and then just keep increasing the resolution with the game running. You can do that by clicking here on settings, and then you're gonna select the option that says game properties. By doing that, you're gonna come back here. And with the game running, you can keep increasing the resolution to see if the performance is okay and if your game is looking good. Now still here on rendering, on anisotropic filtering, click on this one and select 16x. This will make the game look better and it has minimal impact on performance. And that's it for the settings here. We're good to go. Click on close. Now just double click on the game you want to play and the emulator will start. And to go full screen, you're gonna press Alt and Enter on your keyboard. Or you can double click the screen as well. I have many emulation tutorial videos like this on the channel, so if you like what you saw, don't forget to check out my other stuff, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, and as always, I'll see you soon.